Now, then there should be sound. Hopefully you've got sound. Let me have a look. Yay, we've got sound. Excellent. I hit the wrong button. What am I like? Hi, Diane. Yes, what I was mumbling away to myself with the mic off was Watercolour Wednesdays have changed slightly. As you guys all know, you've paid a fee to watch, £1.99. So I've kept it affordable. I hope you'll agree with that. There was lots of people, and thank you so much for your coffee donations, but I just felt that this was the right way to go. Hi Helen. So we're doing this little sheep, and it kind of follows on. I did a paid for class last week, which Helen was on, where we did a row of sheep, but this one's in a little bit more detail. He's really, well, she is cute. She's called Dolly. So hello Dolly. I hope you're going to name your sheep as well. Now you will still be able to watch this video back. Those that have paid can go into the event and watch again at any time. So I have my watercolour paper stretched to my board, 300 GSM watercolour paper. It's my own brand. I'm in conjunction with Bockingford, and I know lots of you have been buying these pads. They're 20 pages in a pad. And I've had really good feedback. They stretch really well, they don't buckle, so there we go. So we're going to start off with a sketch. I'm also going to be using my watercolour paints today, so these are my handmades. I'm going to be using some Prussian blue and some Quinacradome crimson for the pinky areas in my little sheep. So let's start with the sketch. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say, watercolour brushes, again, these are available from my art store, size 12 and a size 6. And we'll also be adding a little flurry with our fine liner ink pen, totally optional whether you want to put the ink on or not. So let's start by sketching Dolly out. I'm just going to move everything over slightly so I've got room. And I usually start at the top of the head. So let's position Dolly on the paper. So I want her face, I want her kind of central. So I'm going to start. Now you should use a HB pencil for your sketching. I'm using a 2B, so I get a stronger mark for you guys to see. So I'm coming across the brow of her head. She's got a little indentation there in the middle of her skull. And then I'm going to come into the ears. So we slope down, everything's getting in my way, and come out to those lovely big ears. Now look how high up from the head to the tip of the ears come, and one's a bit more pricked than the other one. So it's going to come above the level of her head, come across and round into the fluffy part of her ear. Come down the side and then pull back in and then curl round the bottom. So it's kind of an angular ear, comes down, comes in and back up. Sorry, I'm not looking up at comments because I'm concentrating. And then I'm going to put that skin that's showing on the back of the ear. Just come in there. We have one ear. Okay, so the other side, same thing. Coming off the head, and we slope up, and this ear should come up slightly higher, so follow that slope up, that pricked ear, and then come down. It comes straight down and then across, gets a bit fatter as you come down to the base, back in and across. Okay, that looks about right. Try and keep them roughly the same size. The good thing about sketching with pencil rather than your ink pen is you've got a chance to make adjustments. And then we've got that flap of skin again, coming across this time, creating this triangle space in the corner. Okay, I'm going to follow that line of her head down beside the ear. Now, always look at the position of eyes on our farm animals, and quite often they're really far apart, they're really wide, so that it can see us creeping up on them. Okay, so I'm going to pop that first eye in. I'm lining the top of the eye up with that part of the ear that it's next to, coming across the top of the eye with an arch, coming down and into the tear duct. Then when we come down the bottom, I want you to come down, and there's a little curve as it goes around the side of the eye. Down, and then I'm just going to join those up with another little arch as we come in. I probably made that a bit big, so I'm just going to shrink that down a little. I've made it a bit wide, so I'm just readjusting, taking my eraser. There we go, and just get that in the right size, the right proportion. Then I'm going to bring her eyeball in, her iris, and it curves around that top part of the eye, just in there. So you want to bring the bottom of her eye in there. I'm just going to zoom that camera in a little bit for you. Bear with me one sec, guys. There we go. So move that over. So you can see what I'm drawing a bit clearer. So I'm always looking at the negative shapes as well. So I'm looking at the distance between the top of the eye and that part of her head, again to make sure I've got things in the right place. I'm just going to come down from that tear duct with a little dotted line and coming out to her cheekbone. Now here, look here, we have another triangle. So if I drew a line straight down her face, we come to the nose, and then we've got this section of her cheekbone coming out. So it's like an ice cream cone. So we're going to come down. Okay, I'm going to rub some of that line out later, but just so you've got that as a guide. And let's come across the other side. Pop her other eye in, slightly higher because of the tilt of the head. Look at the position with the ear. Way over to the side, curving across, coming down to the tear duct. Then we come in and droop down again. Comes up and out. And just like we did the other side, we're going to pop the eyeball into position. Check those shapes one last time. Make any minor adjustments. I'm just going to shrink it down. I'm drawing everything really big today. Let me just shrink that down a bit. There we go. So Dolly can see what we're doing. I'm looking for that triangle again here. Coming down from the side of the mouth, comes up towards the bottom of the eye. Okay, we've got a triangle shape again. So if I draw a line across from the corner of the eye, then it helps us get this angle right. I'm going to bring that one down a little bit longer. And coming down her nose towards her mouth. So we've automatically got the bridge of her nose in place. Okay, carry on down the mouth now, and it squares off. Comes round that top lip. Let's try and get this in the middle, first go. And then we've got her little smile popping up and down. So we've got the basic shape of our sheep's nose. And let's put her nostrils in, symmetrical. Coming another triangle. It's amazing when you start looking how many triangle shapes there are when we're drawing animals. I'm looking also where that nose comes. You could draw lots of lines across here to help you. You could draw a grid if it helps you. But usually you can just measure one thing against another. coming up into that flared nostril and curves back down. So we have her nose in place. Fabulous. Oh, was that a comment? Let me just see. Pip saying she can't access. Sorry guys, let me just message. Okay, hopefully she'll work out how to see it. Okay, so we've got her nose, we've got her nostrils, and now we're going to add some fluff. Okay, so I'm going to come to the outer edge of her face, below the ear here, and just come down really loosely, creating like billowy patterns coming down that side of her face, and the other side not so much, coming down to the bottom of her top lip. I'm going to come back up to her eye, and then there's another row of fluff going on beside her cheek here. I'm looking where it begins and where it ends. So it begins at the side of her nose. Look at that negative space, look at the shape that you're leaving behind, and then we have her side of her face in, symmetrical. Carrying on with that furry fleece, coming up, lots of lovely patterns, and just hold your pencil nice and loose down the side. And when we come to paint her, we're going to let her just fade out into the paper. I'm just adding a few more little furry flurries with the pencil around that fleece. Oops, I've missed something. What have I missed? The bottom jaw. So coming in, down to that bottom jaw. Look again, look where it starts on her top lip. Just in from the edge, and then we've got a shadow area that runs along that middle. I'm just going to shade that in so you can see what I'm talking about. There she is, and we have the basic sketch of our sheep. So I'm just going to get rid of any unwanted lines. I'm just going to get rid of that bit either side of the nose. I don't need a line there. There we go. I'm going to also rub it out on here, because once you've drawn over your printout, it can get confusing. So if you've drawn some guidelines, rub them out, otherwise you'll think they were part of the original picture. Okay, and she's ready. So I'm just going to give you a moment to get your drawings finished. I'm going to put a bit of an eyelid at the top there, a little bit of an eyelid at the top. Just checking my proportions again, just whilst I'm waiting. All looks good. Softening some of those lines a wee bit. Get rid of some of that pencil, because I've gone quite heavy, so it shows up for you. Let me just see if anyone else is struggling. This is the first time I've done Facebook Live this way, so I'm new to it as well, but you guys all got on, so well done. Did you have any trouble finding it? Make a comment. How did you find today's live? Did it just let you straight in? I'm guessing that they need to sign in. There was a technical hitch. Oh, Pip! I hate technical hitches. And for some reason, your comment's been blurred out. I don't know why. Very weird. Facebook has Has a mind of its own. So we've just sketched in our sheep. You will be able to play back, Pip. You will be able to rewind and watch back from the beginning to help with the drawing. So I've got my pots of water, I've got my brushes. We save the ink until the end. Came up as usual on Facebook, didn't have to sign in. That's what should happen, I think, Diane. Thank you for that. Okay. Well, it obviously recognises you. It works okay on your phone, but not on your pad for some reason. How very weird. Was you signed in on your pad, I wonder? Because obviously you've paid via Facebook, so it needs to recognise that you've paid. I'm sure all things will become clear as we carry on through the weeks. Okay, so let's get some colour on our sheep. I'm going to start, where shall I start? I'm going to start in her face because I want her face to dry out so we can do the eyes. So I'm going to do the face wet on wet. So I'm just going to take clean water and spread it over her face everywhere in that face area. So beside the eye, coming down to the nose. Not too much, just nicely moistening the paper. Don't put any water on the eyes themselves, okay? Just that face and coming into the fleece, under her chin and up the side. So we're leaving all this area dry. I just love these colours, okay? So as I said, I'm going to use Prussian blue. Let's pop some Prussian blue out in my mixing well. You could use any blue you like. Cerulean blue would look quite nice, or even a bit of turquoise would look lovely too. Good idea, Pip. When you're a bit behind, there's no point rushing. So the colours on her face are really pale. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this Prussian blue, using the very tip of my brush, coming down up the head, starting at the crown. I'm going to leave a lot of white paper and just trust the paint to spread where it wants to. Okay, this is very freeing. Don't try and over control it. I'm going to get rid of some of that colour on my tissue there, and then just pour a little bit of that colour around into the water. Very pale, very pastel colours. I'm going to come into this little spot under the eye with my blue, down beside the nose, and what I'm doing is trying to shape. I'm just going to rub out that pencil line there. I did that to show you the shape. I don't need it anymore. Shouldn't really rub out when I've already wet the paper. Never mind. I'm going to come on this bone that sticks out and come under the eye and soak up any big strong colours. Just take my brush and dip it in and soak it up. She's so pretty. And remember, the colour is going to be affected by the water on the page. Come down to the nose, leaving lots of white space. And just using that very tip of the brush to come into the little pads of fur on her top lip, on that lip area. Okay, now I want a bit of purple going on, so I'm going to take my I can never say that word, Quinacradome magenta, and pop it into my blue, and suddenly it turns a purple. Red and blue will give you a purple. And I'm going to drop some of this purple into the blue, let it just mix in certain places, keeping it fresh and soft. If you find that your sheep's the paint is spreading too much, tap your brush on your tissue, get rid of the colour, and you can just use the tip of your brush just to soak it up, control it, pull it back if you find it's spreading further than you want. So in the middle of her face, it's spread quite a lot. I want to bring some white back. I should just dry my brush off, wash it and dry it, and then just come in and soak that up again. Just mop it up. You could use a bit of tissue as well if you want, but your brush is the perfect tool just to soak that up. Okay, I want a bit of pink as well. So I'm going to take my magenta and dilute it so I get a nice pinky tone, and drop some of that in on its own. If it touches the blue, it will turn purple. Where it sits against the water and the paper, it will stay pink. There we go, just a bit more colour going on in her cute face. So the next place I'm going to go is to her ears. And for the ears, I'm going to go wet on to dry first, and then I'm going to introduce more water as we go. So I'm going to take that pink again, my Quinacradome magenta. You can take any red and water it down. I'm going to use it slightly stronger. I'm going to come all the way across her ears. Even though they look blue here, I start with the magenta underneath. There we go. Clean that brush off. Then I'm going to go into my blue. Pop some more blue in here. Quite creamy, quite strong, because her ears are in shadow, remember. And I'm just going to touch down and drop some of the blue over the pink along that line on her ear. Along the line where the skin meets the side of the ear. So it's lovely and dark. And this is the magic bit where I'm just going to add some water now. I'm going to start away from the paint. Just add some water and creep up. Bring the tip of your brush in to touch in that pink and blue. And then you'll see, hopefully you'll see that paint will bleed out. The stronger paint will come in and come into that water. So you still keep a nice strong dark along the edge of the ear, and then where you've just added the water, creep into that paint and let it bleed out. It's called softening, and we're just giving that paint a little place to run to. Okay, let's bring my paint palette back. We'll do the same again on the other side. So take your pink first, your red, watered down red, come in. So this is the inside of her ear. Drop that pink in, come all the way down that fold on the side of her ear, a bit stronger. Wow. Just look at that beautiful colour. And now I'm going to go into my blue, just like we did before, and tap some blue over the top. So we're doing this first, a bit more blue. Tapping in. I want to leave a bit of pink at the top. Try and leave a bit of pink at the top. We'll see what happens, because watercolour does have a mind of its own. Clean my brush, clean it off, grab some water. Now, when you bring this water in, I want you to get rid of the excess just by touching on your tissue. Just touch down and then get that water and creep up again. Start away from the colour, creep up, and then just touch in. A little bit more water at the bottom there. So we've got those lovely darks there, really framing the face and putting that shadow area that exists in the ears because the sun can't get in there under that flap of skin. Let's go again with my blue. Oops, my blue's fallen over. Here we go. I'm going to take the blue stronger this time, straight from the pan or straight from the tube if you're using tubed paints. And I'm going to come into this area at the back of the ears. Just touch down. The face should be dry now, so it's not going to bleed into the face. Come along the back of the ear. I'm going to put a bit of pink in there as well. Why not? This time I've gone blue first and then pink. Doesn't matter which way round you do it. But take your colours nice and creamy, straight from the block. And we're not going to soften this. We're just going to let that sit there as a defined area. Same on the other side. Start with your blue or pink. I don't mind which. You do want to make sure the face is dry. Okay, because these ears are a separate entity as such. On the back there. And a touch of that pink again. Just daubing it on. Daubing it, that's a good word. Daubing it on the top. Okay, fabulous. Now on this side, I'm going to be naughty and I'm going to change my mind. So up the ear, I want a little bit of colour. So I'm just going to bring my water down. Hope I don't get it all to bleed too much. Just a little bit of water at the top there. I seem to have got away with it. There we go. Don't forget we're going to use our ink pens later. So even if you do get a big bleed, you can sort that area out with your ink line. Okay. We're going to leave, should we do the eyes next? Let's do the eyes. So again, make sure your face is dry, not your face, your Dolly's face. And for the eyes, I'm going to use burnt sienna, that lovely gingery brown. I'm going to pop some in my well. Don't need much at all. And I'm not going to use much water. Now this is the key with the eye. Okay, put your paint in with a little bit of water in your palette or on your plate. Clean your brush out, dry it off. So the only water we're using is what's in here, in the palette. Oh, let me move that down. You can't see it, can you? So the only water we're using is what exists in there. So just a little bit on the tip of your brush, and we're ignoring the black area of the eye. We're going to come in under the eye, right on the tip. Use a smaller brush if you want to. And I want to leave a highlight even in this area of the eye. So I'm taking it around the edges of this bottom part of the eye. So around the eyeball, bottom right, coming in to the tear duct, and then leaving it a bit lighter in the middle. Okay, let's do the other side as well. So not too much water on your brush, so you can control it. Come around the eyeball, the iris, down towards the tear duct, leave white in the middle. Leave the paper showing. Okay, and then just a little bit of moisture on your brush, a bit of water, do your tap, and then just tap the water on the white paper. Okay, clean your brush off again before you do the second one. Just tap in between that burnt sienna. Just giving it a little bit of place again for that paint to flow into. Okay, I need to leave that for about a minute to dry before we put the pupils in and the iris. So whilst that's happening, we're going to come into her nose. So I've got Friends Grey here. I'm going to take my Friends Grey, really, really creamy again. Do you remember how to mix your grey if you don't have one? You could use black, you could even use your ink pen if you want to. If you don't have grey, take your blue and brown together, your dark blue and either your burnt sienna or burnt umber, and you'll get a grey. But I want you to have it nice and creamy, really creamy, like double cream consistency. And we're going to come into the nostril on the very tip of the brush, come around the underside of the nostril and down to that V shape down the middle, in the other side, down that V shape, okay, and then I'm going to use the very tip of the brush to push some black bits up, push from that bottom line and just nudge them upwards. I don't want an outline all the way around that nose. I want some darker areas where the nostrils go, and coming down. Now come right up onto the tip of that brush and just tiggle down. Rest your fingers against the paper to give you balance. Use a smaller brush if you need to. Come down, and then we're just going to pop that shadow in between the pads on the side of her face, between her top lip and her bottom lip. My dog is back at the vet's today. She's having another 2 teeth removed. Just thought I'd mention that. Big ones this time, so triple rooters. So I'm a bit concerned about my Bella today. I'm sure she'll be fine. She's in good hands. So we've put that little smile in place. Okay, clean your brush again. I'm going to go with just a little bit of dampness on my brush in the top area of the nose. The top line, creeping up on that grey, touching in like we did with the ears. Just a bit of moisture so that black can gently soften up the nose. She's really cute, isn't she? I like this one. Looks different to the first one. They always do. Okay, so the trick is with these dark areas, put the shadow where it's strongest, in this case on the bottom. Let it dry back just for a moment or two, and then with just a damp brush, add a bit of water along the top line of the nose, and you should see as you touch into that grey that it will gently bleed up. Okay, so now I'm leaving her chin white for now. Let's put some shadows in around the face, and this is really going to make her face come forward. So back to working wet onto wet. You don't have to. You do have options, okay? Maybe I'll show you both. Let me show you both. Okay, this side I'm going to do wet on to dry. Take my Prussian blue, which keeps falling out of its spot. There we go, Prussian blue. And I'm going to come, this is on the outer section, away from her cheeks. Bring this blue along that line. It's like we're doing painting in the negative. We're painting everything beyond that central face. I'm going to come down to her chin there. Okay. Pop that on. And then I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. There's a touch of green going on, so I'm just going to add a couple of blobs of yellow here and there. Wet onto wet, into the blue. So put my blue down around that area. It's a couple of times, probably gone a bit mad with the yellow, but hey ho. I'm going to lift a little bit back out again. And then taking clean water, or dirty water, whatever you have. I'm going to come up, just like we did in the rest of her, and just bring that water in, touch in, around that face. Give that paint somewhere to bleed out into, okay? So that's the wet on to dry version. And you can see where I've chose to bring that water in, the colour's going to bleed out and create a pattern for me. And then what you do is go back in, if you want it a bit stronger, a bit more shadow, and touch in, literally pick up some paint and touch into that wet area under the chin, touch down with the tip and lift to make that really dark. And you could also just whisk a few bits out, flick it out with your brush. Okay, now lots of white. We need lots of white to exist because she's a sheep. If it spreads too far, dry your brush, soak up, wipe off, soak up, wipe off. Okay, so the other side I'm going to do wet onto wet, just so you can see the difference. So I'm going to come around that face with just water. It is really the same thing, it's just what you're comfortable with, what way of working you prefer. I'm going to pull that water out and along, all over the right hand side of Dolly, down into her fleece. I'm not worried if there's a few areas of dry paper. I'm being quite sporadic, quite spontaneous. Into my Prussian blue again and come along the side of the face. Now this time when I touch down, it's going to spread out straight away. So that's the difference. And then you'll use your tools, your brush, to soak some back up if it spreads too far. The creamier your paint, the darker the colour, and also the less likelihood there is of it bleeding too far. So now I'm going back in, straight from the pan, with my blue, and tapping just the very tip of the brush in. I'm going to carry on around the other side as well, now that's drying. Now I prefer this side. I like working in the wet and wet style and just letting what happens happens. But if you want that bit more control, put your paint first and then the water. So two ways of doing the same thing. Okay, so now I've wet this side already. I'm just going to have fun. I don't want any solid colours. I'm just going to tap in, pick up some colour, bit of water, tap, 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 creating patterns in the water that's already on the paper. Leaving lots of white gaps in between. And I'm going to come in with my beautiful pink. And I'm going to do the same, just tap it into the blue, next to the blue, wherever you want it. I'm going to go into that dark blue around the face, a bit more pink. And because of the way you're applying your paint, dabbing and tapping, you're going to get that texture of the fleece, okay? Fabulous. Maybe a little bit of yellow. Just a couple of dabs of yellow. Don't feel like you need to overwork it. That's it. That side is finished. So I'm going to do the same over this side now. I'm going to wet it. I'm going to have a darker area outside. Oh, my water's dirty. I'm going to come down, leaving on Dolly, whoops, around the left side. She's got this extra fold of fluff that's occurring. So I want to keep an area dry. Just add the water where you want it. keeping some dry paper. And then into my blue again first. Touch down, have fun, be loose. Add in some lovely pops of colour down this side. As I say, we're just going to let her fade out. I do want to keep this band along this side of her neck. So I've not put any water here. I did draw a line there. I'm just going to rub that line out because I've changed it. There we go. And then the same with your pinks. You could make this whatever colours you want. The cool thing is when you add your secondary colours, to let them touch into the blue so they create a third colour as they mix and play on the surface. I'm going back onto that face again as well with some more darks, because under here her chin, her face is casting a shadow over her fur under her neck. Where am I going? I'm just going back. This is still damp, so I'm able to take some strong puddles, tap in and lift off. Lift off. Just tap down and lift off. And that's how you'll get that strong, intense colour, because you just let it form its own little puddle around the shadow side of her face. There we go. Look how much stronger that looks. And just to be equal with the other side, I have a few taps of yellow. My yellow is very strong in this set, so I have to be careful. Okay, now I need to let her chin dry, but I'm just going to tidy up a bit more blue on my brush, coming around that chin, just reshaping, tidying it all up a bit. Sit back, have a look, see if the shape makes sense. I'm just going to take it in a bit more on that side. Just reshaping. Doesn't this fur look wonderful? Billowy and beautiful. Okay, so we're going to finish with the eyes. Now again, if you want to, you can use your pen, okay? But I'm going to go straight into my grey. If you're using brown and blue, I want you to go blue, brown, end on the blue with a wet brush straight into your paint, okay? Blue, brown, end on the blue. Your brush needs to be wet and you'll get a real intense grey. So in we go, tip of the brush. Again, I want you to come round the exterior shape of the eye. Oops, I've touched her fleece. Come around the outside edge. And we want to leave a glint in her eye. So I'm going to carry on pulling this grey, getting tighter and tighter, coming further and further into the eye, just leaving that highlight in the top. Okay, so do your outside edge and creep in. That's the best way. I'm going to take then a bit of tissue and I'm going to screw it up to create a nib. I don't like a big flat black eye, so I want to bring a highlight into the black. So screwing my tissue up, I'm just going to touch in and lift a little bit of that dark grey paint off on the end of my tissue. Okay, that's it. And we're going to do the same on the other side. So dark grey, in we go, around the edge of the eye. Use just those very tip bristles. Your brush does need to have a bit of water on. I just stopped because mine was dry. There we go. Come around the outside. Creep up, narrow it down towards your glint. of white paper. Fill it all in, except for the highlight, of course. Grab your tissue, and I just put that, I just like that lighter area because the eye is a ball, okay, it's a circle, it's curved, and it will have a highlight. Okay, now at this stage normally I would go for my ink pen, but today I want to do the splatters first while she's still damp. So I'm going to use the same colours, take my blue. You don't have to splatter, it's totally up to you. If you want really small splatters, take a smaller brush, load it with your colour, hold it horizontal to your page. For small dots, just a gentle tap with your finger. I'm going to take it over her face. The reason I wanted to do this while she was damp is as those splatters touch her, her fleece, those little dots of paint will spread out. Okay, if you don't like some of the splatters, just touch down with your tissue and lift off. Hard down, lift off. And then I'm going to add some pink. Of course I'm going to add some pink. So you really want to load that brush with the paint. Load it up. Hold it horizontal. Give it a little tap. I just love splatters. It's just a thing. Not everybody does, but I love a splatter. There we go. She's got the measles. Another option, if you don't like the splatters on the face, is just to add some water and let them spread out and incorporate them into your painting. Lots of options. I like to give you options. Okay. Finally, before we hit for our ink pen, I'm just going to add a little bit of colour to her chin, her bottom chin. Now that's all dry. Just going to put a little bit of blue down the bottom there. I'm going to put a bit more shadow at the side of her nose. I want her a bit darker there to make her nose pop out. Just there. I've just spotted that bit. Pop that in. Now, please remember, whenever you add a bit more colour, like I've just done there at the side of her nose, and you don't want a crispy line, just bring that soften in with a bit of water behind it, so it's got, again, somewhere to go. Okay, I think she's almost done. Hairdryer time. Grab your hair dryers and dry her out. Okay, there's one bit that I've just seen that I don't like, guys. That always happens to me. Here, on the left side, that line's too solid. So I'm just going to take some water, reactivate the paint, and just break that line up a bit. It just looked too solid. You can always reactivate your paint with a bit of water. Just give it a little jiggle to get it moving again. I didn't like that line. It was too hard. Okay, so we're going to finish off our beautiful Dolly with our ink pens. Of course, Jean, I'll try and remember to do that for you. I'll put a list of the colours up. And I had one of your friends contact me. I will message him after I've finished the live. Thanks, Jean. Okay, so I'm using a 03 nib pen, which is fairly fine, doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to sketch in a few places around my sheep. I'm going to go round her, but I'm going to use it like a pencil and with a broken line. Okay, I don't want one solid outline, you know, like a colouring book. So just a few areas that I want to emphasise coming around her eye. I will go solid around the eye. That's one area where you do need to bring that line around. But everywhere else, I'm just going to really loosely sketch. Now your paint needs to be dry before you do this. So please make sure it's dry. And then broken line sketching, lifting that pen between my marks. I'm going to come around a little bit of the nostrils, across the top of the head. So just touch down, draw a bit of a line, lift off, keep it loose. And in the fluffy bit, I'm just going to do a few puffy lines, a few little wormy wiggles. Not too much. This is just emphasising what we've done, not drawing a line as such. That makes sense? I hope that makes sense. Coming around the eye again. Into the eyelid, and up the other ear. Just sketching like you were sketching at the beginning with your pencil, coming along the edge of that ear. And a few twiddles down the side. As I say, in the fur, you just want it as if you're doing clouds, you know, how you would have drawn clouds as a kid. Just put a few wiggles in. Under that chin, let's make that chin pop out. And that's it. That's how I would leave her. And maybe up the top of her head, a couple of little marks. There she is. You could always give her eyelashes if you really want her to be girly, a bit comical. Dolly number 2 is born. She's a little bit chunkier than the last one. Gorgeous colours. I think I prefer the new one. So there we go, guys. Please send me your pictures. Okay, post them in the event as a comment. I want to see your sheep and how they came out. So I really hope you enjoyed Dolly the Sheep. You can watch it back again if you need to. And I'll look forward, hopefully, God willing, to see you next Wednesday. Thanks, guys. See you soon. Take care. Bye.